Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Like when I started this channel, it was a beer channel, obviously, but when I switched to doing no beer or zero beer, I figured that the content was going to be limited, so I threw in some motorcycling stuff. So I'm doing bike stuff as well, and I think I specifically said right at the start that I wasn't going to be doing reviews because I didn't feel like I've got enough um, recent experience to do reviews. So I that's what I wasn't going to do. I was just going to do videos of myself riding. Um, to whoever that interested, cool. That was cool. Um, but then I thought to myself, well, hang on, I'm a returning rider after a few years. I'm going to be buying new stuff and comparing it to the old stuff that we used to sort of zoom around in. It should be better. So maybe I can do like reviews of stuff that is better than it was back in the old days when we were riding around in pretty much fucking jeans, work boots, and swan dries. And that was it. And maybe a pair of gloves if you were, I don't know, rich. So anyway, I did buy some extra gloves. I just did a trip from Northland down to Wellington. Now, for those of you who aren't in New Zealand and live in countries that are larger than us, which is, I guess, a few, maybe just not Great Britain, maybe, I don't know, but like Europe, the US and Australia, where distances are vast, a trip for in New Zealand of that length, which is 800 k's, that's a long trip for us. I guess I did it in 2 days, so it was broken in half. So it was sort of, I don't know, 400 and I think it was 490 k's a day. It's 800 900 k's, something like that. But I broke it into 2 days and went halfway, and obviously the other half after that. Um, for those of you who don't know the geography of New Zealand, it goes from sea level up to alpine mountain passes and that sort of thing. And the highway that I took, which goes from Northland to Wellington, State Highway 1, it's the main highway, I guess, runs through some subalpine areas where you're up at around about, I think, about 700 metres, I think, which is fairly high, and obviously it's very cold. Now, that area is called the Central Plateau. It's sort of a volcanic area. It's where the main, or the main army training area, or the army training group area for New Zealand. And I was privileged, is what I say, privileged to be stationed there early in my army career, and I grew to love the place. I just love Wairau, which is the actual town around the camp. And so that's where the subalpine coldness comes from. So I knew it was going to be cold down there. So to cut a long story short, I decided to buy some gloves because riding in Northland is wet, but it's not cold. So I thought, right, I'll get some gloves that are able to withstand the rain and sort of, yeah, just the rain in Northland and keep my hands dry. But I'll get some that are windproof and will keep my hands dry in the cold. So I went out and I bought a pair of Revit gloves. Now, I'm a bit of a Revit fan. Um, Obviously, when I was first riding bikes years and years ago, Revit wasn't around. In fact, the only gear that I can't even remember the brand of the gear I had, but it was pretty substandard sort of shit. The actual riding gear, all I had was a one piece like raincoat. That's pretty much all I had. So I've hooked onto this Revit gear. There's plenty of riders around the world that are using Revit gear that are on YouTube, and I figured it was a fairly decent brand. So I have purchased quite a lot of Revit gear. I've got blooming Revit pants, I've got Revit jacket, I've got a summer jacket that I can put other jackets over the top. I've got Revit wind collars, I've got Revit gloves, lots of Revit gloves. So I actually rate product itself, it's really, really good. So I thought, I'm going to go and buy some Revit gloves that are going to keep my hands warm on my ride south. So I bought these gloves, and they're called the Contrast GTX in black and grey. That's what they were. So I bought them, I tried them on, I went for a couple of rides up here in Northland, and during the early morning I found that my hands got quite cold. So to alleviate that, because I figured it was just from the temperature on the outside of the that was making my hands cold. I've got hand guards on this old girl, so well, it's not even old girl, on this new girl. I've got hand guards on her, so they should stop a lot of the wind, but I was still getting cold fingertips. So I bought a set of a pair of thin merino gloves to go inside these Contrast GTX gloves, and that seemed to solve the problem for me. That was brilliant. They would slide in, keep my hands warm. My hands would be dry because the gloves are Gore-Tex, so I would have dry hands, they would stay warm, and it would be fine. Well, anyway, let's cut back to the trip. So I jump on the bike and off I go, and I head south, and I get to Bombay. So from Whangarei in Northland to Auckland, rain. It just spitty rain all the way down. Got to Auckland, and it decided that it was going to open up the heavens and dump like a year's worth of rain in the short period that I would be riding from Auckland to Taupo. So essentially I got pretty soaked, like pretty wet. Now these are the gloves here. So these are the Revit Contrast GTX gloves. This is how they come packaged. They have a nice little elastic band around them that keeps them together, and they're clipped together like that. You get a little packet of instructions and the swing tags, obviously, on here. Now I guess you're thinking, well, if you've already used them, why do you have swing tags? I'll get to that in a second. So these are the gloves. They're a very, very nice glove. They've got a cinch strap at the wrist, and then the gauntlet part velcros across as well. It's all velcro. It's got the knuckle guards. It's Gore-Tex, and the reason I got these is because over the years I've had gloves, and generally the liners, when you put your hand in them, you take your hand out, and the liner inevitably or invariably removes itself when you pull your hands out, particularly if your hands are wet. Now that's a pain in the ass, because then you've got to go through and stuff the liner back in before you put your hands back in. These specifically stated that the tips of the finger pockets, I think that's what they're called, are bonded to the glove, therefore reducing the ability for the liner to come out. Yeah. Well, if I'm nothing else, I am one to fucking test products to their limit, and sure enough, by the time I got to Taupo with my wet hands, the fucking liner came out of these gloves, which annoyed me a little bit, especially since I paid, and you're gonna have to sit down for this one, because yeah, this is pretty $299, like $300 for these gloves. So you would expect that they would probably, work exceedingly well for that price. So anyway, I bought them from a local motorcycle shop, they're a great bunch of blokes. And when I bought them, the guy that sold them to me said, they do say that the end of the fingers are bonded, but always grab the end of the fingers before you pull your hand out of the glove. And I'm like, yep, cool. That's how I generally take my gloves off anyway. But I will specifically do that with these, and I specifically did. And the left hand glove separated from the inner, which was pretty annoying. So anyway, This is where I come back to Revit gear. So, okay, the glove didn't work as it was supposed to. I ended up swapping gloves and going back to my dry rider gloves, which performed flawlessly, and are a really nice soft glove. But anyway, I get back here and I'm like, the bloody line has come out. I flick an email to Revit, New Zealand. I get an email back from Revit saying, "Hey, that's an issue. Um, let's take it back in and start the warranty process." So I took this back into where I purchased it, and within 3 or 4 days, brand new pair turned up for me to pick up again. The explanation from Revit is that sometimes the bonding process does not quite take on the fingertips on these gloves, but they honoured it. Now, this is the first pair that's happened to me, but I know other people have had it happen to them with this exact same type of glove. So the Contrast GTX does have a habit of separating from the fingertips and the liner coming out. However, Revit, to their credit, are very good at honouring their warranty. So I have a brand new pair of Contrast GTX gloves to play around with when I go riding next. So there you go. It's not a review. It kind of is. They're a bloody good glove. They when they work really well. That liner does have a tendency to come out, but Revit stand behind all their products, and you'll get a replacement pair. So you can't complain about that. Yeah, there you go. Told you I wasn't going to do any reviews, but I just did one. Yeah, alright, there you go. Catch you when I do another non-review, when I don't do another review. Catch up.